The Blackstone Millville Regional School District School Committee for Thursday, March 9th. If we could stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Introduction of members.
Georgette Jarrett, Blackstone.
Jane Reggio, Millville.
Bill Chaplin, Blackstone.
Erin Vanaco, Millville.
Wendy Greenstein, Blackstone.
Steve Tringali, Millville.
One Cup, business manager.
Alan Himmelberger, Superintendent.
Dave Thompson, Assistant Superintendent.
Thank you very much. And moving on to, we took our students off. So we do not have student reps this evening. Actually, Jack did send me a few announcements, so what I'll do is I will add them in at the end during our committee forum. So next on the agenda is our first public forum. If anyone wanted to speak to us before our open hearing. Okay, moving on to consent agenda A, we have warrants, field trips, and minutes for the meeting of February 16th. Did anyone have any questions, want them separated, or do I have a motion for the consent agenda A?
Make a motion to approve consent agenda A.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Wendy and second by Jane. Any discussion for consent agenda A? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous, thank you. And moving on to our school committee public hearing for the FY18 budget. I will hand the presentation over to Mr. Himmelberger.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Vanaco. Welcome to everyone who is here. It's wonderful to see you all here, and thank you to the leadership team as well. With your permission, I'd just like to drive it from the podium,
Sure.
and that might make it a little bit easier.
Do you need the keyboard?
No, I got one
You
up
have
there,
one up there?
and I can stretch.
I like it.
So Mass General Laws welcomes us tonight as a public hearing, which we must do to hear what the FY18 budget can be. And so, as everyone knows, our budget is a challenge each and every year. I just want to go through a very quick narrative, look at the increase, see what our issues and concerns are, and then where we go from here, March 9th. So FY18, it seems like we say this every year, but this is the most challenging cycle of many recent challenging cycles. The state budget that was released by the governor January 25th does not address the findings of the Foundation Budget Review Commission of 2015, which said that the rapidly increasing costs of health insurance and special education were not being met in the Foundation budget as it is currently constructed. This Foundation budget formula is based on 1993 ed reform, and everything has increased since 1993. We are finding that our revenues and our offsets continue to erode. Chapter 71, transportation, is subject to appropriation, has only been fully funded 1 year since its inception. It typically is funded somewhere around 60 or 70%, yet the law says that we must provide transportation for every child. The kindergarten grant has no longer been funded. That offset is gone. Our circuit breaker reimbursement continues to be lowered as a percent. Our title grants from the federal government have been steadily declining year after year. At the federal level, at the national level, the move is to push more of the responsibility for education to the states. Therefore, the federal government feels that they can get out from under some of the funding obligations. As recently as 2000, the federal share of education in most districts was over 10%. This year, it will be below 2% for us. The state funding, when times were better, again, prior to 2000, the state picked up 50 to 60% of the total cost to fund education, with the towns somewhere in the 30 to 40% range. That has changed to now the town's share, as well as the state share, is almost equitable, 48, 49%, with the rest being made up of federal funding. We have been asked to comply with stricter regulations around IDEA and what governs educating our students with special education laws, and we have seen a rapid increase in our English language learners over the past 2 years as well, with no additional funding. ESSA, which was reauthorized last year, which is the law that governs public education, which was originally the Elementary Secondary Education Act of 1965, was reauthorized, but with no further funding. Again, moving it to the states. The states' standardized assessments have been in a state of flux, and what was MCAS is now being called PARC and/or PARC 2.0. While most people would agree that MCAS has outlived its usefulness, it will still be the competency determination for our graduates through next year. The new assessments around PARC require computer-based testing. And while we did upgrade our wireless capacity, we still need to have the devices in the hands of the students in order to take those assessments. We also know that 4 of our 5 schools, Millville Elementary, Kennedy Elementary, Maloney Elementary, and the high school, all have serious needs that we must address. And those statements of interest have been submitted to the School Building Authority. The 3 elementary schools are on accelerated repair projects, so the MSBA could, in fact, fund all 3 of those this year. The high school is a core renovation project, and only 1 of those is funded per district per year. There are not many high schools that predate ours that have not been renovated. So I would think that certainly there will be some conversation to move these projects forward. These schools currently, when things break, we don't have knowledge when they will, so we do have to move assets around in order to fix them, and that has become a drain on the district. The foundation budget requires we only spend $19 million this year. A little over $19 million. That's far below what it takes to educate our students, to meet the requirements that the state and federal government puts in front of us. Again, and this seems like almost I could hit restart and replay from the last 2 years, that more and more of the cost must be borne by local budgets. And when local budgets rely upon property tax for a large majority of their revenues, that is not equitable. Maybe that's another reason why the federal government is abdicating some of their role in public education. We came up with a rather hefty increase, to say the least. 1 new staff member, curriculum and technology, transportation, special ed, facilities and maintenance, contractual obligations, and benefits. That number is in the process of being reduced, and those reductions, or the items that we will not be able to afford, like some of our technology, like our science curriculum, will be delineated at the adoption hearing in 2 weeks, on March 23rd. This one's a little harder to read, but it shows a history of the last 5 years. Part of our problem is that our budget has been uneven. In 5 of the last 11 years, we have seen our operating budget reduced. Chapter 70, as you can see, continues to flatline. That is our primary funding source from the state. And in 2000, health insurance costs were about 20% of the state's budget. Fast forward to 2016, they're 45% of a much larger budget, but still 45% of that budget. So what happens in that 25% that became health insurance, Medicaid, and all of that cost? Public infrastructure in the terms of, in the form of roads, health and human services, public education. Those all were the lines in the state budget that could not keep pace. Now, the state budget grew from 26 billion to almost 40 billion, but yet at the state level, we've also reduced or held steady on our revenue. So all of this together makes things very challenging. If you look at FY14, the school committee committed $650,000 of their excess and deficiency account, the district's stabilization account. That year, the towns did not add any supplemental to that. This year, with our E&D account approaching 500,000, it's going to be hard for the committee to do the right thing and not touch that E&D. At some point, we're going to be in a situation where we don't have any reserves, and I think that a lot of people have said, well, why don't you get grants? Grants are easy. Grants are easy, except for the competition, the competitive grants, we do not fare well. We are a victim of our success. And the allocation grants go to the gateway cities, the urban environments. And so we do receive small grants that our leadership team applies for, but the $100,000 and $200,000 and $300,000 grants are not out there for our district. So there is no easy answer to funding public education. As long as the same parameters exist, that you must provide transportation and lunch and come to school for 180 days, which is the same way we've been doing it since the 1920s, it doesn't sound very progressive at all. It would be certainly nice if we could not have to make up snow days because our students are studying online. It would be nice to offer more flexibility in our scheduling so that we are not tied to an environment that is very inflexible and doesn't allow our students to exercise the full range of options to them. One of the things that we are tasked with is implementing science standards. ELA and math were the first of the curriculum that was updated and tested. We started to test science and estimated that we would have to spend about $200,000 on materials, on instructional materials, on software, on professional development. We don't have that. We know we need our tech infrastructure to meet the state testing requirements. This is a little bit of what I was touching on. Public education is expensive in this current model. We have 4 schools that need some work. We don't seem to have a lot of will at the state and federal level to help, and our costs are growing. And yet, if you go into our schools and I'm sure our principals and directors would invite you in and be happy to show you what happens in our buildings. It is nothing short of quite impressive and amazing each and every minute of each and every day. We have talented and very dedicated educators, not just in BMR. Some of them are on the school committee, some of them are in the audience. We work hard, given the constraints of our profession, to do the job that we are tasked with. And I know that Millville and Blackstone don't have the base to afford the kind of increases that this district requires. But we have to find as much as we can to support the work. In 1980, a high school education was 80% of the jobs in this country, and you could live the American dream and buy a house and raise a family on a high school education. Today, there's about 10%, 12% of those jobs still existing. And so much as the workforce has had to reinvent how manufacturing is done in our country, much as how higher ed has had to reinvent how students learn when they get to colleges and universities or degree-granting programs, we are in the K-12 world being pulled, kicking and screaming, into that environment. Bless you. And yet we have to do it with fewer resources and more bars raised as we get closer. And yet, in spite of all of that, we do a pretty darn good job, as evidenced by how well our students do both in standard testing, how well they do when they leave us. They just published the dropout rates last week. And this, across the state, they have come down dramatically. And I believe the state dropout rate was at 1.9% last year. That's tremendous, because that covers every student. At BMR, our dropout rate was 0.8%. That's a tremendous amount of work, not just for the high school staff, but for all of those that teach the grades that come before. They have been tremendous in the supports we give our neediest students. Nobody goes home when the clock strikes 3. Nobody comes in when they have to report. They're in early, they stay late because they're committed to our students. And it doesn't matter, and Griffin Riley at last year's commencement said it better than any of us could about how well these two small towns have supported him and all of our kids. So that's where we are. We still have a lot of work in front of us as we parse through line by line to get to a number that we think we can live with, that we can present to the towns. And that's the committee's heavy lifting with the input of our leadership team. But we need to preserve what we've achieved, and we need to grow wherever we can. And we will do that somehow. It does make it a little bit easier with a little more money. So as we go forward, school committee adopts the budget on March 23rd. I had high hopes for a Saturday breakfast workshop back on February 11th. I think I got snowed out. I would like to reschedule it with the committee's guidance as to either March 25th or April 1st, so that we can all sit down together and look at what we have in front of us. The committee, as well as leadership team, is available, and we will be meeting with all of the town boards. March 20th, we're invited to a joint board meeting in Millville. And I'm sure that we will be meeting with the respective finance committees as well as boards of selectmen. The Millville town meeting is May 8th. Blackstone's is May 30th. And then June 8th, the school committee certifies the budget. It would be my hope that we don't have to repeat last year, which did nobody any good. We didn't have a budget legally until September 1st. That is an impossibility. We need to purchase more over the summer. So the goal would be that both town meetings could approve a number that is workable so that we do get a budget that we can certify June 8th. And then the planning begins as to how best we move that forward. So the bottom line is that we are in the perfect storm of more demands, more regulations that we must hit. And we also have declining offsets, reimbursements, and grants. And shame on the state and shame on the federal government. At Inauguration Day, I heard the words from President Trump that public education is flush with cash. That would not be the large majority of the 15,000 districts in our country. So, we look forward to the process between March 9th and June 8th. I think it's important for everyone to approach it with a spirit of cooperation, not negativity. I think that by modeling what we teach our students every day, to appreciate differences, to work together in teams, to do critical analysis, and find where the answers lie. If we can all do that, then we will be okay. But make no mistake, there's a lot of work in front of us. Be happy to entertain any questions, and certainly if I can't answer them, I would get the answer to you as soon as I can tomorrow. But that is the state of where we are today. The only additional staff member that we are looking to add is another technician to help in technology, as that demand for the two folks that currently do that work is overwhelming. We are looking to, hopefully, the committee would vote tonight to offer a retirement incentive so that maybe we can reduce our force through attrition, through retirements, through incentives, so that we don't have to lay off. I did a little battle today with the Department of Unemployment Assistance. That's an oxymoron if there ever was. And it's not pretty, because we choose to be reimbursable and not contributory. Who even knew that we can pay claims that boggle the mind? So for us to say we are going to reduce force simply with a stroke of the pen has a huge backside cost. So I would prefer for us to reduce our force through retirements and attrition and incentives. And I look forward to hopefully hosting breakfast one of these Saturdays. I think that would be fun for me to at least speak to people in a relaxed setting at the high school Saturday morning. And we'll pick one of those dates and get that out. And I think we look forward to the process to try and find that middle ground, whatever it is. So happy to answer questions if anyone has any, and look forward to the process as we move forward. Thank you.
If you could come up to the table and just give us your name and your town that you're from, please.
I'm Jim Watson from Blackstone on the Finance Committee and the Capital Outlay. So I'm in the middle of both the budget financing and the request for the renovations of the various schools. And I realize all the problems that you have. And I don't think what I'm going to say and where I'm going to go is really going to make very many people happy. And essentially, I think we all have to recognize what reality is. And if you're thinking of a reduction in force, that has to be considered about what's going on with the school's OPEB liability. I believe that when you go to the auditing standards, you're not in compliance. The audit requires that you do it on an accrual basis. You're doing it on a cash expenditure basis, which means the only part of your post-retirement for health care benefits that your contract gives them is the cash payments that you're giving out to the people that have already retired. I don't think, I know I mentioned it to the chairman in terms of the last year as to what needs to be done is to do an actuarial study of what the actual liability per year is to the people that are currently in the system. You have it turn up when your auditor shows up and the unfunded liability that you have is somewhat unknown, but it's in the magnitude of 12 to 20 million. Okay, I did get the actuarial study from the vocational regional school. Theirs is over 20 million. You need to do the factual background to get the information in because it affects the thing. Actual personnel costs in your budget, I don't think are being fully reflected in the budget. The reason that $12 to $20 million liability developed was because you haven't been putting anything aside at all to fund the cost each year. And probably there's several hundred thousand for the proposed year that aren't in your numbers. The line 5200 is for 3,383,000 and change. Some of that, I think, is for the cash payout on OPEB health benefits. It's not broken out. It would be very helpful both to you and to everybody else if that was broken out. It's been going up every year. This is a function of healthcare going up every year in cost. And that is the basic problem that's there. You have the healthcare this year is X. You compound a 3, 4, 5% increase each year. By the time the people that are working in your system now die 30 years from now, what is that healthcare cost going to be? It's a real problem, and I know it doesn't help you at all. But I think it is something that has to be faced, has to be understood. And I kind of harassed the town administrator to do this on the town. I think we got the town's Blackstone side reasonably under control. In a way, I apologize for doing this tonight.
Thanks very much, Jim. Certainly, it's a topic that we have been hearing more and more about, and we have to obviously address. Any other questions at all from anyone? And certainly, this isn't the only opportunity to ask and email or call me, and happy to discuss. And certainly, in 2 weeks at the adoption hearing, I think it will be important as we move forward. So thank you again.
All right, no other questions. I think actually we would like to entertain that retirement,
Yeah.
the early retirement option for our professional staff. So
Yeah, so as.
if someone has a motion to
Attempt,
make.
yes, if I could propose a motion. I move the early retirement incentive to Unit A members who will submit their plan to retire to the superintendent by May 1st of 2017. The district would pay a lump sum of $7,500 to the employees in the last payment of June in 2017. This amount will be taxed and is not pensionable. The employee would had to have 20 years of service with the district or be eligible for retirement with the Massachusetts Teachers Retirement System. Those who have already declared for retirement and wish to take advantage of this incentive, the incentive would be offset by the amounts that they have already been paid.
Okay, so motion made by Jane. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Steve. Any discussion for that motion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much. And moving on to the report of the superintendent.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Vanaco. You have in your packet a list of surplus English books and VHS tapes that have been sitting in Grandma's attic for a while, and Mr. Dudek and Mr. Ducharme, along with the English department, have declared that the balance here, which is not large numbers, is of no further use to the school and to the district, and respectfully ask for the committee to vote to surplus them out.
So moved.
Okay, motion made by Wendy. Is there a second? Second by Georgette. Any discussion on the surplus English books and VHS tapes? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Go ahead.
And then, thank you very much for that vote to surplus. That will help us clean up and clean out. We are fortunate to have the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education visiting us Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday next week. This is an audit review of the district's operations under Mass General Laws, Chapter 15. And this review is supposed to be done once every 6 or 7 years. Much like reauthorizing ESCA at the federal level, it seems to have taken a little longer. But they are here looking at our curriculum, our instruction, and our assessments. And so a team from the Department of Ed will be in our schools and visiting with the leadership team next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Then they will formally report their findings sometime towards the end of the summer, and then that report becomes public document and hopefully can be useful for us as we assess where we go forward. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Moving on to our final public forum. Is there anyone that would like to ask questions or speak to us tonight? Okay.
Come on, people.
And, I'm sorry, Dave, I skipped it over you. Report of the Assistant Superintendent.
No, I figured the budget discussion was going to go further, so I did not. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're good?
I'm good.
All right. So moving on to school committee forum. Steve?
Nothing, just I know this is a long process. I hope it goes a little smoother, a little more speedily than last year. Last year, we really were set behind because we did not lock in a budget until September. That really handcuffed us. We definitely don't want to repeat that last year, and I'm looking forward to a lot of open dialogue back and forth. Hopefully it'll be a good process. That's all.
Wendy?
I just want to thank the 8 members of the Blackstone community for coming. FinCom, selectmen, and potential selectmen, I believe. But thank you for coming. There are 8 of you that are here. And I also want to make it known that in our school systems, you know, we're struggling to even put forth a science curriculum that the Department of Ed is asking us to put forward. We're struggling for a writing program. I have 3 kids in the system. I will soon have 4 in the system, and it's really disappointing that we can't move forward as a town, and we're stuck. We have students that have social emotional needs that we're trying to meet in the classroom, and I encourage anybody in here now to come walk through our schools just once. You'll feel the 90-degree heat that our kids are in because our schools need updating. You will see the problems that are happening in our school, and we're doing the best that we can in our school systems that with the money that we're given. It's just really unfortunate, and I hope that we can make a change because the teachers need it. I think the administration needs it, and I see the struggle every single day. And I just think it's important to know that the things that we're being mandated to put forth, we're struggling to do that. And it is a high number that we're asking for, but come walk through the school. I invite you to come walk through any of our schools and see the children doing the best that they can in class sizes that are somewhat large, in social emotional students that are struggling, in the curriculum that we're given or lack thereof. So I'm just formally inviting anybody to walk through our schools to see that. Thank you.
Thanks. Georgette?
I agree with what Wendy and Steve said. I have nothing else.
Jane?
I have several things. But first, I would like to thank everyone who came here tonight from both towns and also the leadership team. We're asking people, our towns and our leadership team, to do something that's not easily done. We're asking you to look critically at the dollars that might be available in the towns to support the schools, and we're asking the leadership team to look critically at the services we're providing students to do the best for our dollars. And that's tough. It's really tough to try to find that balance. So I thank you for looking at every dollar and cent, and I thank you for looking at how the programs work together and using your best judgment to guide us, because that's all we can do is ask you to guide us. We are not in the schools every day, and we don't know what works the best or doesn't work the best, but we do know that we need the support of both of these towns, and we need to work together as this whole group that's sitting here. And the dialogue doesn't need to just be the people around this table, but it needs to be the people around both communities. And so I'm hopeful that that will continue as we go along. In saying that, I've been working on the policies of the school district and trying to update them to 2017 as opposed to most of them from 1996. And I did receive a phone call from Nicole Langto, who asked me to look at a particular policy, and that was for who can run for the school committee. And so I met with the person from MASC, and we looked at that policy, and I want to make it clear to everyone, because I know there's still an opening on the Blackstone ballot based on people not taking out papers, or not turning them in, I guess. You can run for the school committee. The only people who cannot are people who teach in the district and the superintendent. So if you are in Unit C, if you are in Unit B, if you are not in a unit, as long as you are not a teacher or the superintendent, you can run for the school committee. So I would encourage people to look at that. I will call back Mrs. Langto and encourage her to get her name out there, but we do need people who are willing to fight these battles and use that critical eye that we're asking everybody else to use as well.
Thank you, Jane. Bill?
I'm good. There's a lot said. I'm not gonna
Okay.
top and do more. Go for 2 weeks.
Not to prolong this any longer, but I have quite a few things to say. But first I want to say that it is such a battle every year. I know Wendy pointed out that there are 8 Blackstone community members here. I'm a little disappointed we don't have our new Millville Town Administrator, or any FinCom, or anyone that it's important that we're communicating with. It definitely makes us feel like they don't want to communicate. So we have to have open dialogue to make this work for our kids.
Thanks to Joe.
And yes, definitely, thank you, Joe, for being here. Offering the early retirement as a committee is just one step in trying to make sure that our budget process can work this year. We need to keep our teachers in front of the kids. That is definitely our committee's priority. In years past, when we've offered it, we have not offered it to the teachers that were in the middle of a 3-year retirement incentive that we do have. We're opening up that to that group of people this year for a reason. And we hope that it can help us meet halfway. I do also have a few other announcements from our student reps because they are currently attending our Central District Mass Association of School Council meetings in Hyannis, so they're both absent today while they're representing us there. There is a dodgeball tournament Monday, March 13th after school at BMR. The Band-Aid concert is Thursday, well, that was last night. It was last night. It's tonight. I hope they're having a good time. There's something he didn't have in here, but I actually happen to be privy to some of that information, so I'm going to share it with you. And I know the majority of this, I think actually we all sat here last year when we had our sports captains come in after every season. And I think we all took the same gasp when our cheerleaders sat in front of us and told us that they made it to regionals and did not go because their coach did not take them. And they have had a very successful season this year with a new coach. I have some of their stats here. Natick High School on February 12th, they came in 3rd place. Chicopee on February 18th, they came in 1st place. Shepherd Hill is where they qualified on February 24th for regionals. And regionals were in Foxborough on February 26th. They came in 3rd, if I'm reading that correct. They're moving to the state championship at Wachusett High School. The girls will perform at 10:30, which is, I believe, the first time our school has ever moved that far for the cheerleaders. So we have 14 girls on the squad. There are 7 seniors, 1 junior, 2 sophomores, and 4 freshmen. And we wish them great luck for this Sunday. And if anyone is in the area of Chicopee, you can certainly, Wachusett, you can certainly go over there at 10:30 to cheer them on. And that is all I have for tonight as well. So moving on, we have our next budget workshop for March 16th. That is going to be held here.
High School Media Center.
We're moving it to the High School Media Center.
So that's downstairs in the library?
Yeah, on the 1st floor.
Got it.
And March
Is that open
23rd.
to everyone? Okay.
It's a budget workshop,
That's-
but
I just want to throw that out there so everyone is aware of that.
I believe all of our administrators will be
Yep.
attending. And March 23rd is our budget adoption where we have to vote on our actual budget.
Can I add something to the
Sure.
agenda? Did everyone receive the food service policy?
The Google Doc he sent us?
I sent it in Google Share the day after the last meeting.
Okay.
Do you want it on the 23rd?
Yeah, I'd like to adopt something on the 23rd, yeah. So I sent everybody a policy the day after we talked about it here in Google Share. Since we're a Google district now. Jane?
And we have to Google. We have to learn how to Google. Go into the next Google PD.
Okay, and any other items for that agenda, feel free to send them along to myself or the superintendent, and we will get them posted for you. And I will be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion made by Wendy, second by Jane. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much for coming.
This